Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we're talking about how intermittent fasting supercharges your brain. So basically restricting calories, and in particular, taking time between meals, extending out the amount of time we're taking between meals, particularly our last meal of the day and then our first meal the following day, how that can have a dramatic impact on our overall brain function. And so as we jump into this, my name's Dr. David Jockers. If you don't know me, I'm a doctor of natural medicine. Here's my beautiful wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And I've really developed a specialties in the ketogenic diet and brain health, longevity, and strategies that we can take, like intermittent fasting, to improve our overall health. And so when we look at fasting, we know that basically, every ancient sage, right, wise man or spiritual leader discussed the benefit of fasting and would actually recommend for their followers a ritual that revolved around fasting for periods of time, whether it was each day, whether it was on a weekly basis, or at several times during the year. Jesus himself fasted for 40 days, and that was kind of the start of his ministry there. And so we look at Plato here, who was a philosopher. And so he says, I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency. So he's talking about efficiency here. And this is a really key component, because basically when we restrict calories, or we take a building in a cleansing window, or we take a period of time without food, our body gets more efficient at utilizing its resources. And that's really what fasting does, and improves the efficiency of both our brain and our body. And that's why it's so powerful. In fact, it stimulates the production of neurotropic growth factors, particularly one called brain-derived neurotropic growth factor, which dramatically improves the amount of, or basically the health of our neurons and the amount of synapses, or little gaps between neurons. And so we look at 5 major benefits of fasting. It improves immune regulation. That means that it reduces inflammation in the body, reducing things like interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha. So these powerful inflammatory pathways, it downregulates those. It stimulates something called cellular autophagy, which is basically when the body, or the cells of the body, end up eating, the white blood cells end up eating old decaying cells. And we know that conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's, those are defined as basically an inability to have this autophagy process, where the body's not able to break down these decaying cells. So they end up overgrowing. And in Alzheimer's, we find these neurofibrillary, we basically find neurons that are damaged, the fibril agents of them that are significantly damaged. And autophagy helps remove those from our brain on a regular basis. But if we are unable to have effective autophagy processes, then we're not going to be able to do that, increasing our risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. It also improves genetic repair mechanisms. So it's an epigenetic influencer, meaning that it's an environmental stimuli that helps improve the way that our genetics express themselves. So very important for that. It also improves insulin sensitivity. We know that insulin, when it's real high and our body's not sensitive to insulin, then we end up developing chronic disease. And so fasting is a really, really powerful way to keep our cells very sensitive to insulin, which reduces inflammation, reduces cellular reproduction, and improves our body's ability to utilize its resources effectively. And then, of course, it reduces chronic disease, really based on the fact that it improves it reduces inflammation, improves BDNF, increases autophagy, improves insulin sensitivity, and impacts genetic repair mechanisms. So you can see how this works. It also helps heal the gut. I mean, you think about the amount of foodstuffs that we're putting in our system on a regular basis. And digesting food is a very stressful, very challenging process for our body. So when we take time out from trying to digest food, that actually helps improve the overall healing and repair mechanisms of the gut. I mean, think about it like a sprained ankle. So if we have a sprained ankle, we can't continue to walk or run on the sprained ankle if we're going to heal. We've got to take time away from doing that. And that's really what intermittent fasting does for our gut. So it's kind of like resting our ankle. It rests our gut, allows it to heal and repair. Reduces inflammation in the gut. So whenever we eat, we actually produce inflammation. Eating itself is a stress on the body, and it promotes inflammation. So when we fast, it downregulates that inflammation. Fasting improves hormone sensitivity, and we talked about insulin, right? And plays a big role with insulin sensitivity, as well as other major hormones like growth hormone. So it actually improves growth hormone levels, and growth hormone acts to stimulate genetic repair mechanisms. So it tells the body repair, heal, grow, and develop. That's what it tells it. And that's a good mechanism that we want, because we want to be, lean, mean. We want to be strong. We want really efficient cells, and growth hormone helps govern that. And ultimately, it helps us become a fat burner. It puts our body into a state of ketosis, where we're using ketones as a primary energy source. So really, really important that right there. And we've talked about, obviously it reduces our risk of chronic disease, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, neurodegenerative disorders. And ultimately it's going to help us live longer, but also not just live longer, but actually really, really healthy and abundantly well. And that's really the key here with intermittent fasting. We talked a little bit about insulin. Insulin plays a big role with neurotransmitters. When we have insulin sensitivity, we're going to have issues with recycling and utilizing neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, different things like that. So basically, by keeping insulin sensitive, we're going to reduce oxidative stress in the brain. We are going to improve overall neurotransmitter sensitivity and improve our quality of life. Okay, so what is intermittent fasting? How do we apply this? And so we know our fed state is basically the moment we start eating. So let's say like we see the meal right there. We've got some healthy meat, healthy vegetables, probably some grass-fed butter. If this is my meal, I've got grass-fed butter all over the veggies, all over those steamed veggies. I cooked my meat in coconut oil. I've got lots of herbs on everything. I squeezed some fresh lemon or lime on it. So it's a really good low carb, high fiber, moderate protein, high good fat meal right there. So I eat that. The moment I start eating, I'm in my building state. I'm out of fasting. I'm in a building state where I'm starting to stimulate some insulin. I'm starting to stimulate some inflammation in general as part of the process of digesting the food. Now, that's okay. It's a low carb meal. And of course, we need to eat, we need calories. So I'm eating that meal. And then that building phase lasts for about 3 to 5 hours while my body's digesting, processing, and pulling nutrients out of it. And then we go into the post-absorptive state. And this will last anywhere from 8 to 12 hours after our last meal. So we eat the meal, and basically we are processing the meal, and it goes into this post-absorptive state for about 8 to 12 hours. After that, we go into what we call the fasted state. So this starts 12 hours after our last meal. Okay, and every single person should be doing a fasted state, at least 12 hours between your last meal and your first meal every day. And that's when you start to kickstart that fat burning state. So if you finished your dinner by 7 p.m., then you would not want to eat until at least 7 a.m. the next day, particularly high amounts of carbohydrates and protein, right, in particular. But really, it's good to just lay off of calories, drink some herbal tea, something along those lines. Keep your calorie counts, like let's say under 20 to 30 calories. Like you might have some coconut water kefir, like some fermented coconut water or something like that, or some Dry Farms red wine, just a small amount. But you would want, again, very, very low carb overall, low calorie overall, so you can get into that fasted state. And then you want to do that for 12 hours at least. And then after that, depending on the state and the health of your adrenal glands, you can start increasing the amount of time between your last meal and your first meal. So you can go up to, let's say, 14 hours. Okay, so 7 p.m. you finish, you're not eating until 9 a.m. then. And you see how your body tolerates it. When you first wake up in the morning, you drink a lot of water, you hydrate your body really, really well. And, that's always key to help with this fast. You want to make sure you're really well hydrating during that cleansing phase. So the building phase is really the time between our first meal and our last meal. So if it's 12 hours, like you can see the different types of fasting, a simple fast would be 12-hour fast. So that would be the time between, let's say, 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., your first meal and your last meal, and then 12 hours where you're in the cleansing phase from your last meal to your first meal. The cycle fast, then you might move it up to 16 hours and do that 3 times a week. So you might do, let's say, not eating until 12 p.m., right, or 11 a.m., and doing that, just drinking a lot of water in the morning, and then doing that 3 times a week would be a cycle fast. Okay, so that gives you an 8-hour building window during that period of time. So if you ate your first meal at 11 a.m., you finished eating by 7 p.m., that would be an 8-hour eating window. And then you would have a resulting 16-hour cleansing window between 7 p.m. and 11 a.m. the next day. So you're able to get really, really good level of fasting. So you're going to boost up your BDNF, and a 16-hour fast will typically boost it up 50% higher than it normally would be, which is awesome, and could go up to 100% higher, especially if you're fat adapted and you're used to doing this sort of a fast. You can get a doubling of your brain-derived neurotropic growth factor to enhance the neurological chemistry in your brain. BDNF helps enhance neurotransmitter formation and sensitivity in your brain, boosts up the little gaps between neurons called your synapses. And like they took a look at Einstein's brain and they found that he had the same volume of neurons as anybody else that was his brain size, but he had twice as many of these synapses, these gaps. So fasting will help us improve these gaps, which are really key for high-level thought, right? Cognitive acceleration, being able to think sharply and quickly, and really enhancing our overall creativity and our daily performance. And so the cycle fast is great. The strong fast, which is typically what I'm doing, is 16 to 18-hour fast daily. Take, obviously a little bit more discipline, and you're going to need to be a little healthier to begin with to get into that. That's sort of a 16 to 18-hour daily fast. Women oftentimes will struggle with it, whereas most men can pretty much go right into it. But for women, I would recommend starting with a simple fast, then even actually going to maybe more of a 14-hour fast, and then trying to do a 16-hour 3 times a week. So just kind of progress up like that. Before you would get into more of a strong fast where you're doing this daily. Like many people are doing this. I do it. I don't consume breakfast. Sometimes I'll have some bulletproof coffee, and we have many recipes on drjockers.com. Our turmeric fat burning coffee is my favorite. So we will do that. I will do that and do a strong fast. And then the warrior fast I do from time to time as well, like I did yesterday. I ate my meals between 3 and 7 p.m. So it's basically about a 20-hour fast. And so I did that yesterday. And then I do a 1-day fast every week where I go 24 hours. And I did that this week on Saturday. So I ate dinner Friday. And then Saturday I had my turmeric fat burning coffee in the morning. And I just drank tons of water throughout the day, and then I ate dinner. And so I did a 1-day fast. Yesterday I ate 2 meals, but it was between basically a 4-hour eating window. So I fasted until about 3 p.m. and I ate my meals between more or less like a 4, maybe 5-hour. It may have been like 2:30 when I ate lunch. It was about a 4 to 5-hour eating window there for the warrior fast. But you got to really stay hydrated well during the day. That's huge. And these are the biggest challenges that I see with fasting. Number one is adrenal fatigue, which is also called HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis dysfunction. Really, really common. Basically, the brain's ability to boost up cortisol or to produce the right amount of cortisol, to signal to the adrenals. The brain signals the adrenals to produce the right amount of cortisol. Cortisol is key for blood sugar stability, is off. So it's either producing too much or too little. And if it's producing too little, that can really be a problem with fasting, because then that individual is going to feel really weak, tired. They may have nausea. They may have irritability, headaches. They're going to have hypoglycemic type reactions. So, and then if somebody's constipated, that can also be a big problem, because constipation is going to basically increase the stress response in the body because we have more bacteria in the system. And so now what happens? Now we're going to signal that adrenal response. And again, we're going to tank out. We're going to overstress the adrenals. So here are things that help. Lots of hydration, particularly with minerals, with salts. That's huge. And that would be number one thing I would do, is making sure we're super hydrating the body, using lots of good salts. I like pink salts, like Himalayan sea salt or Redmond's real salt. Those are great. Next thing I would do is add in magnesium too. Do some of our BrainCon Magnesium in water. That will really, really help, because magnesium helps to balance out the HPA axis. And it's a critical mineral that's involved with over 300 different enzymatic processes. And basically, our body's constantly using up magnesium. Magnesium also helps with bowel tone, so muscle contractions in the bowel. So it's great for relieving constipation and also balancing out the adrenals. And our BrainCon Magnesium is especially good for helping with mental clarity during a fast or during a stressful season of your life. So really, really good for that. And then probiotics, adding in some good probiotics. Not only is that help with adrenal function, because we need those probiotics for B vitamin absorption, but also will help with bowel motility, so moving the bowels. So all these things help: the hydration, the minerals, the magnesium, and the probiotics. So I'd highly recommend doing that. Again, if there's one supplement I would recommend, it would definitely be the magnesium, because it's just so important for so many different functions of the body, stabilizing our blood sugar, circulation, cellular energy, for balancing out our nervous system and our HPA axis, for helping our body move bowels. So definitely do that. And really the best one that I know of, and of course I am biased, but this is why we formulated it, is the BrainCon Magnesium with the magnesium L3, the patented form called Magtine. That's in there, just so powerful for crossing the blood-brain barrier and improving cognitive acceleration, calmness, peace, sleep quality. During the day, it gives you energy and improves your memory. At night, it helps you rest, relax, and sleep deeper. So it's the best of both. So definitely, I would recommend using that. You can find it at drjockers.com. drjockers.com, and special coupon code. If you use the code JOCKERS10, KERS10, all one word, you'll get 10% off of this, and we have free shipping on all orders over $49. So let's talk about who shouldn't fast. I wouldn't recommend it to pregnant women or newborns. Now, some pregnant women have found that when they're doing a low carb diet, or I shouldn't say not a ketogenic diet, just lower carb in general, they find that they can do a 12-hour fast, and they hydrate well in the morning, and they eat their meals between a 12-hour period. And I would recommend that. So I think that's really healthy for a pregnant woman to have the level of metabolic flexibility and energy efficiency to be able to consume their meals in a 12-hour eating window. For newborns, that's not going to be the case. Obviously, they're going to have night feedings. And so it's going to be really, really important for them to be consuming calories every few hours. And most women with newborns know that. So they don't try to restrict their calories when they're newborns. Okay, wait till they're at least about a year old or so, and then typically they're going to sleep 12 hours overnight around that stage. So they start to just naturally do that. That's sort of a simple fast. Okay, and so if you want more information about the ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, different strategies like that, I do have a great program. It's called the Navigating the Ketogenic Diet e-course. You can find that on our website, drjockers.com. So anyways, hope you guys got a lot out of today's training, and would love to hear your comments on what you're doing with intermittent fasting and see if we can address any concerns you guys may have. So God bless you guys, and we will see you on a future training. Bye-bye.